Welcome. My grandson is going to be baptized this weekend, so I thought I'd make him something like this to commemorate the event. Um, I had a little bit of trouble in this because I just have a jigsaw with a fine blade to make this line up with this one. Previously, I used a scroll saw to do this. I no longer have access to that, so I can't do this kind of detail. So what I'm going to try to do today is I'm going to work off of this idea, and I like the idea of having Jesus come off the cross here. So I'm going to take and trace a pattern of the cross on this piece of oak, and then I've cut out a pattern of Jesus, and I'm not going to cut it out. I'm not going to cut the silhouette out on this piece of wood. Instead, I have a beautiful piece of olive wood that I cut from a tree, and I'm going to try to cut this out of the olive wood and place it on top of this, and perhaps even dowel it to have it coming out a little bit. So let's go on with that and see what happens. What I'm going to do now is use this Super 77 3M spray glue, and I'm going to spray it on this figure of Jesus, and when I get enough on there, I'm almost out of this can, but I'll take it and then place it right down on top of this piece of material. So I'll just set this here and try and get it good and centered. Now I have that pattern on there, and I'm going to cut around this with my saber saw. I'm a little nervous about this. It's a tight turn. If I can't get it, I'll stop my cut and use a hand coping saw. Now, I don't know if you've ever used bench dogs, but these are just wonderful. All you need is a 3/4 inch hole in your bench, and you can see I'm going to put a piece of wood across here to just protect my project. Set this down, and you just set them down like that, and it's amazing because I have a rubber hammer here, and I'll strike it right there and right there, and that is really tight. And to loosen it, bam, like that. It's loose and easy to change. I just love these. I don't know why I hadn't discovered them in so many years. They make hooking things up so easy. I'm going to use my DeWalt 20 volt jigsaw, and I have a very fine blade in here, and it's a blade that cuts clean on both sides. Here we go. When you come to these places where the two cuts meet, slow down and just let them kiss, and then you won't have a lot of file work to do later. I'm going to go ahead and finish this off. You can see what I'm doing here, and I won't take up the time on camera to just cut this cross shape out. I'll bring you back up to speed when we get the whole thing cut out. Wow, look at that. The blade flexed when it went through this oak because it's a fine blade, and I got a weird cut there. So it's file time again. I'm gonna need you. I guess that's kind of corny, but I'm gonna clean this up a little bit. I think I might try the belt sander. I'll go ahead and break this loose now. This is usually where you drop it to the floor and wreck it. Now, let me flip this over, and you can see I'm still getting a little bit of flexing in that blade. That's not a big deal, though. I'll go ahead and file that out. And now you can see I have some finish work to do with a file and kind of clean up, but I still think that's going to come out looking really good. So now what I'm going to be doing is, first of all, I'm going to take this air out of here, and that's kind of a botch job. I didn't think the blade would flex that much. But for me, part of being a good woodworker is correcting mistakes and making it look good in the end, and that's what I'm going to try to do. After I get that corrected, I'm going to then cut away material here, and you'll see me doing this in here. So I'm going to bevel this down. I may even bevel it a little bit at the end here. So let's get on with it. So you can see I have my basic bevel done all the way around. This is way too sharp, so I'm going to now have to go to some hand sanding. I'll do some hand sanding on this, rounding this off a little bit all the way around, cleaning it up, and then use a little bit of high-speed orbital sanding on the surface to make this really pretty. So now a little detail work with my trusty rat tail file, and I'm holding it on this side, pinching it here, and kind of rotating it as I slide it back and forth. And what I'm looking to get rid of are these little burn marks and any inconsistencies around here where I worked with that jigsaw. So I'll just kind of smooth that out. Later I'll wrap sandpaper around here and even clean it up a little bit more. Now when you're working with something like this, there's always a potential for a crack in here and the whole thing takes off on you and it's broken. So you notice how closely I have it clamped into the clamp, and as I work down here into the arm area, like if I wanted to work here, I would never do this because the grain is running this way, it's going to split right off. Instead, I would put it down like this and barely have any of that grain showing, so I could just kind of slide like that very gently across and take off any burn marks or saw cuts that I don't want in there. So that's the way to safely do this. So I'm going to spend some time doing this, and I'll get back to you in a little bit. So now I will begin the most dreaded operation, where you always have to get down to doing some hand sanding. This I did with a high-speed orbital sander at 220 grit. It's very smooth. It's suitable for finishing right now. But I want to break this edge. It's so sharp right now that I'll take some of this 120 sandpaper and just by hand work this down and look for any imperfections and rub them away. This is kind of like a pencil eraser. If you see anything wrong or anything out of balance, you can just rub it away, and then I'll go back with a finer paper after this removes some of the edge, and I'll smooth that out. So I'm going to do that for a little bit right now. You can see it's starting to come to shape, and this other one is looking good. It had a few holes right here. I filled them with super glue and it kind of dripped over, so I'll sand that away. But that's going to pop really nicely when we put the finish on it. Well, we got everything sanded down pretty well here, and you can see I have my cross, my Jesus on top of the cross, but I want to make it a little bit more exotic by doing this. I want to float Jesus slightly off of the cross. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 1/4 inch Forstner bit and I'm going to drill 2 holes in the back, one about here and one about here, eyeballing the center. It isn't real important. And then what I'm going to do is take these center markers, and these little plugs, they will go into these 1/4 inch holes, and I'll show you this in a moment. And then I'll take this and place it right where I want it, and I'll push it down, and it will make marks with that center spot right there into this piece of wood. And then my 2 dowels are going to be perfectly marked to be put in there. So I'm going to go ahead and set up that drilling, and you can watch me do that. Now you can see on the back side I put these center markers here, and what I'll do is, again, I'm just eyeballing this, and I want to get him centered. I want to get his arms centered so they look really good on the cross. And when everything is right where it wants to be, I push down real hard, and you can see I have a mark there and there. Those marks are exactly where these dowels are going to go. So I'll show you where we are right now. There's kind of an edge view, and you can see I'm about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch above there. And when I glue it, I'm going to center it just like that. But what I'm going to do first now is finish the wood. And I'm going to try and put some Watco wood oil on the oak, and I'm going to experiment and try to seal this with super glue and then buff it real shiny. This is the part I love because it really pops the wood out and looks beautiful, the grain. Here we go with my favorite part. I'm going to be using some of this Danish oil. This is just natural, but whenever you put this natural on the oak, it really brings out the grain. Especially down here, you'll see almost like zebra stripes coming out, I hope. Let's see. So I'll do it down here first. You see that? Isn't that awesome? So this rubs on. I've been using this stuff for years, and what I love about it is you rub it on and you almost can't make any mistakes. You can even leave a lot of excess on, and then later on it says to come back in like 15 minutes or so and rub away the excess. A lot of times I get away with 1 coat on these. It's amazing. And then I like to wax most everything I make, so I put a little paste wax over it when I'm done. But you can look at that. Isn't that amazing? Woodworking is one of the most gratifying things you can do if you have a little bit of skill and a lot of patience. And there's enough YouTubes out there that'll teach you how to do anything. So I'd encourage you to go for it. This little thing here, you could make something like this for a relative or a friend. I made one for a friend that was moving away from our ministry, and I think he almost started crying when I gave it to him. He couldn't believe something handmade is really special to people because they know you put your heart and soul into it and a lot of time and effort. So I won't take any more of your time watching me do this, but I'm going to try to put on this. See, I can put a little of this on the back, and you can see how it's starting to come out, but I think I'm going to try and put some super glue on that to seal it better because it has a lot of moisture. I now have 3 coats of super glue on here. I use the thin super glue. This material here is Stick Fast CA Wood Finish. I rubbed it on there very quickly, and 3 coats, and now I'm taking this. It's about 1500 grit sandpaper. I don't know if you'd call it sandpaper when it gets to that grit. And I'm just taking away, I'm looking in the glare of the lights, and any streaks I see from the cloth that rubbed this on, I want to remove it. take a look at this finish after it's taken a little buffing. This is just super glue sanded with like 15,000 or so grit and then buffed on the buffing wheel. It almost looks like a mirror. Beautiful stuff. Well, I'm almost finished. I'm not sure if I'm happy with that olive wood now. It is kind of has a distinctive characteristic to it of irregularity, and I don't know if it goes with the rest of the cross. I'm still playing with the idea of maybe replacing it with some like redder type mahogany like that. I don't know. You know what I usually do is I go ask my wife and I say, what do you think looks better? That's what I'll do. So anyway, you have a nice idea of how to put together something like this. You can play with all different colors and types of wood, but I'll just glue those pegs in tomorrow when this sealant is all dry. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Well, there is the final product, and you can see I ended up giving up on the olive wood. I'll use that on a different cross. And you can see I've got a nice finish on this walnut. It just glistens. And if I get you around to the back, you may be able to see it's hovering just above the wood on a couple of dowels. And I think my grandson's going to be really happy with that.